132 rooms, 157 suspects, one dead body, one wildly eccentric detective, one disastrous state dinner, and at the center of it all, a case unlike any other. The new Netflix series The Residence is a screwball whodunit set in the White House. From Shondaland, the series features an all-star cast led by Uzo Aduba as Cordelia Cupp, the most sought-after detective in the world. Watch The Residence, March 20th, only on Netflix. Charlie Heller is the CIA's most brilliant computer analyst, whose life is turned upside down when his wife is murdered in a terrorist attack. Wrought with grief, Charlie decides her killers must pay. Without any field experience, Charlie must trek the globe and use his biggest weapon, his intelligence, to enact his revenge. Because the most unexpected threat is an amateur. Starring Academy Award winner Rami Malek and Academy Award nominee Lawrence Fishburne. The Amateur, rated PG-13. Only in theaters and IMAX April 11th.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, a teen is accused of murdering a classmate. How does the crime affect his community and family and their understanding of his struggles? We'll talk about the Netflix series Adolescence. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca. There is a cat detective situation in Exeter right now.
Do we need to wrap this up soon so you can get out there?
Yeah, well, it's on the loose. There is a half-shaved Maine Coon cat that looks like a size of a bobcat roaming about my church right now. And It is a scary sight.
Maybe it's Sergeant Tibbs after they were buried in the graveyard from Pet Cemetery.
Yeah.
Why is it half shaved?
I don't know. I'll send you all a picture in Slack. It's terrifying.
Sergeant Tibbs was half shaved too, you know. Just saying.
Which half?
And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca. I'm just checking out this picture of a half-shaved cat. Oh, my God. Looks like he's wearing Uggs.
I was like, you sure that's a cat? So that is roaming about my church right now. Minister M and Minister Heidi are like, Bricker, we almost called you in the middle of it, but the cat ran away too fast.
Laura, did you see that news story of that school that thought it was a bobcat roaming on its grounds? It was actually just a very fat cat.
There's a lot of cat. And there was a bobcat in Portsmouth this week that went up to somebody on their porch and stared them right in the eye.
Yeah.
So,
oh, goodness.
A lot of cat drama.
All right, so Kevin, this is Monday's program.
It is.
What's coming up on Thursday's show?
On Thursday, on Thursday, we're going to be talking. We've only been doing the show like this for years. On Thursday, we're going to be talking about the Netflix documentary film Chaos, The Manson Murders.
All right. And if you want to get a little preview of what that's like, you can watch it, but you can also listen to my interview with Errol Morris, which has now dropped on the You Can't Make This Up feed. Kevin, I'm so happy that we got to do that.
That was on a Wednesday, yeah.
That was wild, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Okay, so should we just get to what we're talking about? Because I think we're all kind of jonesing to talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Leading off.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defense if you do not mention one question, something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand?
I haven't done anything!
Do you understand?
Do
you understand?
Just tell me you understand, Jay.
On a quiet morning, British police raid the home of Jaime Miller and arrest the 13-year-old for murder. The boy proclaims his innocence as he and his parents are put through the whirlwind of the arrest process and questioned about the crime.
He's a good kid, yeah, and I'm a good dad. Do you know what I mean? He really is. Look, you said yourself. You even said he was bright. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I did.
So, do you understand?
I can see that, but here we are now, and we've this to deal with.
As investigators look for the weapon and a motive, a psychologist searches for clues into Jamie's psyche and what in the unassuming boy's background might have driven him to kill.
The other bloke is much more easy.
Okay.
Him checking whether to stand was much easier. Whether I understand what I did. No, fuck off! I didn't fuck mouth!
Netflix's Adolescence features newcomer Owen Cooper as Jaime and veteran actor and co-writer Stephen Graham as his father. Each of the 4 hour-long episodes were filmed in one continuous shot as the camera follows characters through various rooms, buildings, on car rides, even across town through the air. The story explores large themes about growing up in the modern world, the effects of the crime on community and family members, and questions who, if anyone, is responsible for making a murderer. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from Adolescence. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. Now, I should say we're going to be talking about extensive plot points from Adolescence. So definitely check out for that time code if you have not yet watched Adolescence. So Kevin, what do you
maybe stop.
Exactly.
Go watch it because we think you'll like it and then come back for this discussion.
Exactly. So Kevin, what do you think about the filming choice for this series, the continuous one-shot filming choice, which we have since learned did not use AI and lots of tricks. What do you think about that choice?
Yeah, I mean, we could just talk about the technical aspects of this series for a long time. And as you say, it is just 1 hour long shot. Now, there was a time when you couldn't do this because like a 35 millimeter film cartridge would run 1,000 feet, would run for like 11 minutes. So that was sort of the maximum you could do that. So if you think of something like that Copacabana shot at the in Goodfellas, like that was one take. And then when digital came along, you could push it to 90 minutes. And this director has done that before with Stephen Graham, by the way. And so I certainly was like kind of like looking at like sometimes the camera would just sort of like move a little slightly, or there might be like what looked like a little digital something or other. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the stitch, because it's actually pretty easy these days to morph two separate shots, especially if they're close like that together, to stitch it so it looks like it's seamless. And I was convinced that's what they did. But you have seen the receipts where, yeah, they did this in one long take like a film, where a cameraman, like, you know, jumps through a window to go chase a guy and then runs up down the stairs, and then they put the camera on the drone.
They attach it to a drone in the middle of the shot. It flies over, and then another cameraman catches it when it comes off the drone.
Yeah, or in the front of a van. Like, the technical aspects of this are really great. But for me, and I don't know if you guys think this, but it's not just like a trick. It's not just like this, you know, cinematic stunt, because it does kind of go with the tone and the feel of the show, the urgency, the intimacy. That aspect of it might be the one thing that people remember about the show like years from now, and it certainly was one of the things that piqued my attention when I said we need to do this, but there's so much more to it.
It's interesting. I saw this interview with Owen Cooper, who plays Jaime Miller, who, by the way, this is his first ever acting job, and it was the first time he was ever on a set. They filmed episode 3 first. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. Because if you can't deliver the goods in 3, you got the wrong kid.
And also Aaron Doherty, who plays the therapist, and they talked about the fact that if they had a choice, they would never shoot anything any other way again, because the ability to sort of really do it is because you've already been doing it for 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 15 minutes. And it's like you become, it's instead of saying take and then having to like, you know, retake it over and over again. But Laura, we have one kind of chill, even funny moment at the very beginning of this with 2 cops sitting in a car, and you don't realize, you think maybe they're on a stakeout. You don't realize, it just seems like a very normal day, that they're about to burst through this house for this raid. And then it just takes off. What do you think of the start of this series?
Yeah, so it's a start. You know, you're watching them in the car, and I don't know if he like burped or was eating something gross or something.
Apples.
But, okay, I was just like...
It's those apples. I call that Chekhov's apple. I was waiting the whole time for him to get the squirts.
I don't think apples are good for my stomach acid or something.
Why'd you eat them then?
Well, it's Tracy's idea. Instead of 6, getting through like 6 a day.
Ew, a full bushel.
What's a bushel?
It's like it's kind of what you're carrying.
Just forget it.
Okay, don't ask me then.
There was one time when I was a reporter and I got a phone call to be like, be at this place at this time. And I was like with a photographer, and we were like hiding behind a bush as we watched all of these vehicles, like police vehicles, coming down a road and like doing a raid on a property. But this was, you're in the middle of it as this is happening. And you're thinking like, they're just so chill. And then it was just like, no, we're not even going to knock on the door. We're going to get like the freaking battering ram, bash the door down. The whole family's like in a total panic. Like, what has warranted this type of response? And when they go in to get this boy, he's peed his pants because he's scared. And you're like, wow. Like, I was immediately sucked in just because I felt like the level of suspense and tension was like, I couldn't look away at this point. I'm like, whoa, okay, I am in the show. I am not on my phone. I am fully immersed in this show as it is unfolding, because it's unfolding in like what feels like real time.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a trick
It
that
is
they
real
did.
time.
Yeah, but it is kind of a trick they did, as a narrative trick to cast this adorable, very earnest, wide-eyed looking young boy to play this part, right? So Toby, you have a note that this feels like reality to you. What did you mean by that?
I think I talked about this a few weeks ago, maybe. I can't remember what we were reviewing, but I talked about the Dutch-French movie, The Vanishing, and compared it to Silence of the Lambs. And
The Bunker you were talking about.
The Bunker, yeah. So this has the same... I've been watching with my wife some Harlan Coben show. I think it's called Safe, but partially takes place with teenagers. And it's just very, 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 very different. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know how British police system works or what those schools are like or whatever, but this just has the feel of reality. And I think part of it is, you know, that continuous shot thing, and the fact that by doing that, you don't leave things out. Like you can think about the first episode, which is really sort of about, you know, the institutional response when somebody is arrested for a crime like this. So you see each step along the way, essentially in real time. And if you were just watching a normal show, a lot of that stuff would be left out. Like even if you spent 15 minutes on it, you'd be showing separate, discrete little things that you thought would be particularly insightful or whatever. Instead, this takes you through the entire bit. And I think what's really impressive, I think it's both the writing and the acting, is that, you know, the reason why you don't see it like this normally is so like, well, we'll leave out the boring parts. We'll leave out the parts that aren't important.
The getting coffee parts, right?
But in fact, like, it just feels like every minute from the moment they knock the door down going forward until, you know, we can talk about the last episode, even the points that are quiet and not much is actually happening, they all felt very meaningful. Mm-hmm. To me, I actually kind of lost track of the fact that it was all in one shot. To be quite honest, I got so wrapped up in the time aspect of it rather than the consistent shot, but that you're just seeing everything happen as it would play out in real life. I guess especially the first two episodes, I think, are the ones that are most like that, because the third episode's really sort of a two-person, one set play.
Yeah.
But the first two, it just felt like the environments, the interactions between people just felt real in a way that you don't normally get on TV or movies, especially non-documentary type movies.
I agree, because we never see, and Kevin, I want to talk to you about expectations when we watch these kinds of things. We never see the fact that for cops, this is just a day. Like, this is just like they go to the hallway in between these scenes that are like the worst day of a family's life, and they're just talking to their colleagues. It's just a day. That's something you never see. Like on SVU, it's like Olivia Benson's every day is the worst day of her life, right? Yeah. God bless you, Olivia. But seriously, this is your job. You should be used to it by now. But Kevin, we do have expectations when we're going into watching something like this about plot and about surprises. And how do you think this differs from what we expect?
Well, one trick that it sort of plays, I feel like, and I don't know if I was just taken like this, but it seems to play a little bit with our assumptions about storytelling and crime dramas and the way they play out. It's 4 episodes. You know, we come in and like Jaime says he was not, you know, he didn't do anything wrong, and we're like kind of invested in him as a kind of hero and sympathetic to him. And even though at the end of that episode, we see him on video stabbing this classmate, part of us, or at least me, thinks, okay, there's more to this story. Like, what's the excuse? Like, no, there's an alternative theory here. It looks really bad, but because we've got 3 more episodes to go and when we like this guy, how do we unravel this mystery? And until you get to episode 4, where he decides he's going to change his plea and sort of confirms everything, for me, I was like, oh, damn it. I mean, it was right there in front of me. Why did I disbelieve that, right? Some of that I think has to do with the way that I watch a lot of stuff. I consume media. You're like, okay, this is a crime. Why would we get everything? You know, what's left if that was what it was? You know, it kind of reminded me of like Khaleesi in Game of Thrones. Like, they're like, yeah, it was right there in front of your face the whole time, but you refuse, we, the audience, refuse to believe it. So I also sort of felt as crestfallen as the father did in episode 4, when I'm like, yeah, I guess I've just been fooling myself. And I thought that was another sort of powerful thing about the way it told its story.
Well, I think it's hard, Kevin, to look at a child and believe that a child could do something like that. And I think that's what it is, what you were talking about.
Well, can I ask the rest of you guys, was it after the video, were you sold, yes, he's the killer? And the last,
yes.
You were. You didn't have anyone.
Yeah, I was too.
I think I must have not been paying attention. I missed the video. I don't know how I missed the video. Which episode was that in?
Episode 1, the end of episode.
It ends with them showing
they confront him with the video.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was doing. Because I was they never, I thought they just hinted. I don't
Laura,
know.
it's the most important part of the entire series.
I haven't done anything wrong.
Okay. I'm now going to play you some footage. This is of you and Katie from the car park last night where a confrontation happened, okay?
It's not full screen video. They're showing people watching it on a monitor.
Okay, because I felt some of it was still left to the imagination.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of the show that's like that.
That's the part that's left to your imagination.
They don't tell you things. They sort of let you assume things. It's I think, Laura, about the whole episode where they went to the school, right?
Right.
It is so chaotic and it's so clear. There's only one time that the cop says, what kind of place is this? And I'm sending my kid. But it is...
It smells like cabbage and masturbation. What did you say?
It smells like cabbage, bleach, and masturbation. It's pretty on point, actually. So, but Laura, it's there isn't exposition. They aren't anviling you.
Right.
And you know that people know things you don't know, and you have to figure out, if you want to, what those things are. But even if you don't, you can just ride along. Did you have that experience?
I did. And I think with that school scene, I was kind of looking at this is this a school for kids that have had behavioral issues? Is this just a rough area that kids are living in? Is this school just not properly, are they just dealing with this the best they can? And this is what all schools are like? I'm this place just seems rough, super fucking rough, to the point that the kids are acting out while the police are there in front of the police, oinking and making snorting sounds. And the teacher can't even control them. And then while they're outside in front of everybody, then there's that fight. And you're what am I missing about this school? But it was never directly stated. So I just was left to sort of make shit up in my mind about what I thought was happening at that school.
Yeah. We live a very different experience with high schools than I think a lot of the world does, because we come from such small towns. We live in such small towns. But this is very reflective of what high school is like where I grew up, for instance.
Yeah.
And I think, Toby, a part of the whole point here is that the generation of kids going to high school now, or middle school, high school now, are living a completely different experience than we Gen Xers and older millennials experienced when we went to school, right? I mean, isn't that kind of the point, is that they live on a different planet that we don't quite understand?
Yeah. Basically, the stance that this is taking is one of adults, trying to understand, when Kevin was did you think that was it? And I was kind of dreading that if there was a twist, that it was going to kind of ruin the spell that the thing cast, like I was saying before, this sort of sense of realism. If it had been they'd switched outfits and then somebody else had done it or something. That being said, I mean, it feels like the next two episodes, episodes 2 and 3, which are really about trying to get to the bottom of, as much as they can, why he did what he did, why Jaime killed this girl. And the way that this youth culture is opaque to the adults who are trying to find out about it, right? So, I mean, one of the very few scenes that felt like sort of a data dump is when the lead cop's son takes him aside into a room and is trying to explain to him what these emojis mean, and the fact that the codes that the kids are using in Instagram posts are just bewildering to adults, and they're just reading them completely wrong because they see a heart and the color of the heart doesn't seem to make any difference to them, but to the kids, that's all it means, right? And so it's signifying something else. So when people are liking things, instead of being oh, they're all being supportive, it's no, they're all piling on to this sort of act of bullying, and you just don't understand the codes in which they communicate.
Oh, she's saying he's an incel, Dad.
He's 13. How can you be involuntary celibate at 13?
I know.
Who isn't celibate at 13? Huh?
She's saying you always will be. That's what they say, you're an incel. You're going to be, a virgin forever, basically. And all those people have heard, which means they're agreeing with her.
I mean, that's kind of what goes on throughout the whole thing. And as a matter of fact, the very final scene of the final episode seemed to me to be the father kind of coming to grips with the fact that he tried his best to be a good father. You know, he tried to keep his son out of trouble, tried to do all these different things. But in fact, he never really understood what was happening. And he kind of has a breakdown. I mean, it's a little bit hard to tell because the psychiatrist is mostly just asking questions, or the social worker is just asking questions. So it's not totally clear whether she's a little bit more clued in than the other people are, because she just spends the whole time probing. But
and taking no notes.
Was she recording it?
I think she may. I think she may have been. I mean, I think that's less of the point.
Yeah.
She goes on vibes.
Than the fact that that her whole experience there, you know?
Right. Anyway, instead of having like a lot of things that have some epiphany where they're like, oh, this is the code. Like, we can figure this out. We can go back. Instead, he's basically told what the deal is, and it gives him a little bit of insight, but it doesn't really explain, right? He doesn't have that epiphany. He's like, oh, we didn't get this at all. This is actually a bullying thing. But it feels as though the whole dynamic is still sort of mystifying to him.
Right.
I like that observation, Toby, about how this series is really just adults asking teenagers or asking questions of teenagers about their life, and they really don't understand it. You know, the thing about incel culture that comes back, and I was like, I don't know, is this really...
That we think is fringe, but isn't anymore.
Right. Well, I mean, being a teenager looking for love feels a lot like what these incels talk about, right? You're like, oh, well, you know, why don't girls like me? And when you're young and frustrated and immature and don't know a lot about the world, when the incel culture gets boomeranged back and put in there, as opposed to just saying, hey, you're
this is what it's like right now.
Yeah, you're not on a date because, you know, you're 13 and what, you know, like those things will come. This comes in and it's more like you inject that into adolescent discovery and it becomes like this real toxic mix that sort of falsely validates everything that a confused adolescent going through normal adolescence would believe. Now, we believe you will not find a toxic mix with us on Patreon.
No, it's a very non-toxic mix. And here we are in our business section.
Yeah, I mean, if you join us at patreon.com/partners in crime media, you get all sorts of exclusive podcasts. We're almost up to 800 exclusive podcasts.
750 of them are the readathon, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. It just feels that way.
Well, one of the great things that you will get is Rebecca Lavoie's readathon, taking a look at the Karen Reed case. And wow, in the last week, Rebecca, not only...
Multiple episodes in a week.
Yeah, not only did the trial get pushed back because of chance of an appeal.
We think at this time.
But one of the key figures in the case lost his job.
Yes, Michael Proctor has been dishonorably just discharged from the Massachusetts State Police.
Trooper Proctor. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Other exclusive content includes the Crime Writers on After Show. This week, Rebecca is going to walk us through an interesting thing in the Adnan Syed case. Remember the bombshell?
Nope.
Talk about something that's just been hanging out there, like Chekhov's gun. Rebecca's going to give us a little hint that maybe Colin Miller is also going to drop. Other things that we've got include our Married with Podcast, Advice Podcast, Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club Podcast, and Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker Podcast. In the latest episode, Laura Bricker goes snowshoeing. Now, the snow has left us here in New Hampshire, but we can still...
Except in the shady parts.
It actually hasn't, because last week I hiked halfway up a ski mountain and there was a lot of snow and ice and my legs are still feeling it. So there is still snow to be found.
Laura Bricker, winter sports correspondent. And if you join us as Deep Diver level, not only can you listen to Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club, but you can watch and record it with a great panel of guests. Coming up next, Toby will be talking about the book Eden Undone. Tell us about who's going to be on your panel, Toby.
My panel is going to be Suzanne Rico, who did The Man Who Calculated Death, amongst many other things, of course. Television personality out in LA. Bridget Keown, who's a professor at University of Pittsburgh. Kate Tuttle, the book's editor at the Boston Globe. And Allison Horrocks, who is a park ranger down in Rhode Island.
Wow.
Now, there's so many other ways that you can support us. Look, if you subscribe to this podcast, I mean, like, hit the subscribe button. That's great. But also, go back and double check that your podcast platform, and I'm looking at you, Apple, hasn't unintentionally, or I should say deliberately without your knowledge, unsubscribed you because maybe you missed a couple of episodes. That's a great way to keep us relevant,
alive,
and in the algorithms. Like and subscribe on TikTok,
share
YouTube,
with your friends.
Friends with your friends. Join us on Instagram, and please, if you're on Facebook, join our. We're still getting people every day.
I know.
After all, I cannot believe that our listeners, that every one of them hasn't joined yet. But go to the official Crime Writers on Facebook discussion group.
All right, Kevin. Does that end our business section?
That's the business section, baby.
Let's go ahead and fade that music out right now.
132 rooms, 157 suspects, one dead body, one wildly eccentric detective, one disastrous state dinner, and at the center of it all, a case unlike any other. The new Netflix series The Residence is a screwball whodunit set in the White House. From Shondaland, the series features an all-star cast led by Uzo Aduba as Cordelia Cupp, the most sought-after detective in the world. Watch The Residence, March 20th, only on Netflix.
Kevin.
Yes.
I hear we have a very exciting sponsor coming up now.
Oh, yeah, it's our good friends from Quince.
My best friends from Quince.
Who can resist the good things in life? I know not you, Rebecca.
Nope.
While luxury is enjoyable, it's not always affordable, and that's where Quince comes in. All right, I'm going to throw out the rest of the script.
All right.
You just gave me a very nice gift.
That's right.
And by nice gift, something I didn't ask for. You surprised me with a gift from Quince.
That's right. It's a flannel shirt, but it's not made from flannel. It's made from like sweatshirt jersey material. It is so cozy. It looks like a flannel.
Yeah.
Feels like a sweatshirt. You look fantastic, but you feel luxurious and comfortable, and you are gorgeous in that shirt.
Yeah, it's definitely the kind of thing you would expect from Quince because they offer such a range of high-quality items and prices within reach. In addition to that, you can get things like Mongolian cashmere sweaters for $50.
Sure.
And those washable silk tops and dresses, organic cotton sweaters, and you know what they even have? Jewelry
and furniture.
I believe I saw gold bars. No, I'm not fooling. I think they have gold. I don't know why. But hey, Quince, you got to do you, right? But if I want a gold bar, I know where I'm getting it.
Or in beautiful sectional.
Yeah.
So give yourself the luxury you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/crime. To get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime. So, Kevin, who's the next sponsor for this fine program?
Oh, we're brought to you by HelloFresh.
HelloFresh.
Make deciding what's for dinner a lot easier with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. It's easy to find time to eat well with 50 wholesome, hassle-free meals to choose from each week delivered to your door. Plus, HelloFresh's new ready-made meals go from the fridge to your fork in just 3 minutes with all the same high-quality ingredients and restaurant-worthy flavor you can expect from HelloFresh.
Kevin, you know, there's a thing that people say about growing up, right? Growing up is just deciding what you're going to eat over and over and over again.
For the rest of your life,
That's hard, right?
Yes, it is very hard. Well, it can be hard, but it's easier for your family with HelloFresh because they put together great recipes and give you all. It's like they 3D printed these recipes.
Oh, wow.
They just come up and say, here's everything that you need. But sometimes, you don't even have enough time to get from one podcast recording to the next.
That's right.
I know a lot of people can relate to that situation.
Absolutely, much less decide what I'm going to eat later.
So these ready-made meals are fantastic. You pop them in the microwave and you've got some wonderful stuff to eat for your family right away.
So get up to 10 free meals and a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/HelloFreshPodcast.
HelloFresh Podcast.
One item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/HelloFreshPodcast.
HelloFresh Podcast.
So, Laura, Toby mentioned this one-act play that we see in episode 3. And what's interesting to me, I was telling Kevin this before the show, is that all the opinions I've seen online and all the opinions, I think with the four of us, we all have a different take on what the strong episodes are and what the less strong episodes are. I happen to think all 4 are strong for very particular reasons each. But I thought, like you thought, I think, Laura, that episode 3 was out of the park good. What are your thoughts about the performances and that episode?
That was an amazing episode. I think it was like nothing I've seen on TV in this sort of a genre with a juvenile defendant. in a case. And I think what made it so powerful was the nuance of the scene, the little details, the little expressions. She's going in and she gets him hot chocolate with marshmallows, and she's brought the marshmallows to add in because she knows he likes the marshmallows. And then he asked about that. But then I think the way that the tone changes from friendly to kind of just like chatting to all of a sudden, boom.
Jaime, if you do not sit down, I fucking want to sit down! You do not tell me when to sit down! You do not control what I fucking... Look at me now!
There's the scene where you see her leave midway when they're going to kind of catch their breath, and she goes down to the vending machine, and she's clearly shaken up by just the nature of the response from this young man who, again, I can't believe this was his first actual acting gig in this, because those subtle changes in expression and tone and the entire interaction felt so authentic, but it was like you were actually there. It's like we've talked about recently, like I've talked about seeing like all of a body-worn camera video for something like we did in the Gabby Petito case. You really feel like you're there and you can get a sense of the actual situation. And that is what this brought in, was this is what's actually happening here. And it's terrifying, especially if you're a parent, to see what's so realistic with a 13-year-old child and seeing that actually this really does ring true. And that's heartbreaking and terrifying and really illuminating.
Now, for me, episode 3 was, I don't want to say the weakest because none of these are weak, but if you got to rank them 1 through 4, something comes in 4.
That would be your 4?
That would be my 4.
Boo.
Only because sort of, visually, it's not as exciting as the other ones because you're just in one room. But Laura, did you notice that every time, the tension started to ramp up, you could hear the thunder and the rain start to come in and then recede.
The
and
light would change, yeah.
As the weather changed, so did his mood. Or I should say, as his mood changed, so did the weather.
Yeah.
It was incredible. One of the things I loved about that episode, Toby, was the scenes that weren't with her and the kid. It's clear she's been there before. And so she walks in, she said she was going to go 3 times. This must have been her 3rd because she said it was her final time at the end. But her scenes with that security guard were so on point and freaked me the fuck out almost more than her scenes with the boy, because he was in her space.
Yeah.
He was following her around. He was talking to her like they were friends in a real weird way.
Incel.
And she's trying to do her work. What did you think about that episode as a whole, the performances and those interstitial moments, Toby?
I don't know how you hand out awards, because there's nobody in this who's in more than 2 episodes, I think. But the kid who plays Jaime is just freaking unbelievable. I would assume he would win Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor just for that one episode, if not everything else. And so is the woman who plays the psychiatrist. I think he plays a few different parts. Again, I don't think this is necessarily critical, but it's one of the few times when it's like, oh, okay, there's a reason why this character is in there. It functions in a bunch of different ways. One is sort of the stress is unrelieved for her when she leaves the room after these outbursts, because instantly this guy is even if not in her physical space, is kind of in her mental space.
People hide. And I don't need to tell you this, but they hide so much. Maybe they tell the truth, but the bodies, faces.
Yes, maybe.
He's not overtly aggressive, but he's very aggressive nonetheless in sort of demanding her attention, in demanding that she respond to these things that just don't deserve a response based on everything else that's going on. And then I think it's also kind of showing the adult version of what's going on, right? I mean, he assumes he has certain claims on her time, on her attention. He doesn't touch her ever, I think, but I think there is some very sort of uncomfortable getting too close, sort of breaching her body autonomy. So it just kind of adds to the stress, so that she goes out to take a breath. And then when she goes back in, you're almost breathing a sigh of relief for her, because instead of having this 50-year-old guy hovering and being sort of lecherous, I guess. I mean, it's
creepy.
It's more than that.
Yeah.
But at least now she's with a kid, and the power dynamic is a little bit different. But anyway, I mean, I liked all of the first 3 episodes for different reasons, but this is really kind of a acting tour de force. I mean, the script, I don't know exactly. It was hard for me to picture exactly how, like, are there actual lines that they're reading, or are they just told, you know, this is your basic attitude, like, here are the questions you're going to ask, and then he gets to kind of riff a little bit or whatever. I mean, it's just, again, I'm a little bit of a loss for words, but the way he goes from being calm and trying to answer questions and obviously both suspicious, but also has this like need to please, to suddenly being pushed to this point where he becomes very aggressive, or, you know, he loses his emotional regulation essentially.
Yeah.
It's kind of, miraculous isn't the word, but it's certainly a lot different than almost anything else you see.
Yeah. So, well, I'll come back to you on this, Toby. I know that episode 4 wasn't your favorite. I can't stop talking about episode 4. Kevin and I had a long conversation about it in the car when we were on our way to dinner the other night. Yeah, because
that's right.
To me, episode...
I just thrown a whole bunch of house paint on the car.
Yeah.
It just magically, the color was really... Even though they didn't like mix up the color, you know, and he just took it off the shelf, that was pretty lucky.
Yeah. I loved episode 4 because it shows a generational difference, right? Where we hear a story about his dad having this humiliation in high school and then being fine. Mm-hmm. His dad gets paint thrown on his car and he's kind of fine. Like, it shows the resilience of somebody who's not living like in an incel culture. And plus, we've kind of been led with these breadcrumbs to think that maybe it's the dad that was aggressive toward him. Mm-hmm. And this whole episode shows a man who is like everybody's fantasy of like the center of a family in some ways. And, you know, very stable, very normal. The generational difference even between the older sister and Jaime is like so different. And then it's really just an exploration of like, here's what it was like when we were young, but from a very creative point of view. Plus the episode goes to these different locations, which is amazing. Kevin, we had a long conversation about this episode.
Oh yeah. I mean, I loved episode 4, especially when Stephen Graham is incredible from the beginning to the end. And like few crime stories really deal with the family of the perpetrator in a compassionate way or thoughtful way at all. And these folks are as positive as they can be, you know, given the life that now they are leaving. And he gets angry that, you know, someone spray painted his van, but he's not out of control. Then you see the whole family like get in the van and go on the drive. And this is interesting because, you know, somebody came with the camera and somehow locked it down on the rig in the front of the van. And so they went on their drive and you're seeing them face on through the windshield. You're right, they have this interesting story. They're very kind of optimistic. And then after the whole thing where he chases the kid and he throws the paint and they get back in the car.
He meets the incel in the store.
Meets the incel in the store, right? This is like some more of it starting to set in. When they go home, the view is from behind, right? In the back seat of the car, see the back of their heads. It's dark. It just gets really interesting. And then it isn't, you know, you get to like the 2 final scenes, the one with the wife where they're talking about it. And you just kind of come to the conclusion that nobody is responsible other than the kid for himself.
I said, when I had my own kids, I'd never do that. I'd never do that to me kids. And I didn't, did I? I just wanted to be better. But am I? I'm not better.
The fault doesn't lie with anybody else. And that's like an unsatisfying answer emotionally. And then we get to see him like go into the room and break down. And Toby used the term tour de force, and I agree with that. That's a great way of describing this.
Laura, what I loved about the store scene in particular was that the wife was like, I'm going to get a plant.
Yeah.
Which is such a dumb little, but that's exactly like, Kevin, how many times have we been to, times have we been to Lowe's? And I'm like, I'm going to rescue this plant because it doesn't have enough light in here. Like, it happens all the time.
It reminded me, like, I'm watching them walk in. I'm like, oh God, they've got all the little like sitting places out, like the outdoor patio furniture and everything. And
if he's a plumber, he's been there a billion times to get PVC pipe, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was interesting because it felt so normal within a part of their life that was anything but normal at the time. But they were trying so hard to just be like, we're just carrying on. You know, even the daughter kind of getting into the song in the car, but that whole section in the store, you're waiting, like you said, I was waiting like, okay, now he's going to snap. Now we're going to see that the dad is a total asshole when this guy in the paint section is like, I know who you are. But he doesn't. He throws the paint on the car, but not in the way that you think he's going to. That whole episode, like humanity is sort of the word that comes to mind, because you go back and you see him just crying in that room, which again, after knowing what happened and then seeing like this little boy's room and he's with the teddy bear.
Piece of wallpaper.
Yeah, he's got like the spaceship wallpaper or whatever, and he's got the teddy bear that he's crying with, and he's like, I'm sorry. And you're just like, this is like showing the humanity. And I appreciate it because as somebody that works in sort of that criminal defense world, I think this gave a really good portrait of what happens to the victims that you don't think of in a crime, the actual family members of the person that is charged. And I think this showed that so well, especially that scene with the father at the end.
Yeah. So Toby, this wasn't your favorite episode. How come?
So this is the one episode where I felt like you could see that they were cramming a whole bunch of stuff into the course of an hour in a way that didn't feel natural. It felt like all the other ones, it didn't feel like things had to happen at a certain time in order to be able to make points, right? It was just like you watch the process of Jaime getting booked. Like these guys go to a school and they're sort of talking to different people. They look into classes or whatever, but it's not like something conveniently happens so that a point can be made. The thing with the social worker, psychiatrist, whatever she is just basically one dialogue the entire time with a few little breaks. In this thing, that sort of sense that everything was real was kind of lost for me, in that there was just too many things that were happening in the course of an hour in order to make points about how this affected the family. And I just kind of felt like the last one felt more like a normal television show to me. Mm-hmm. It was the only time when I felt like people acted in ways that people do on television shows, but not in real life. Like this idea that these kids who had sort of biked by and taunted him would actually end up hanging out on the other side of the fence at this like British Home Depot or whatever the hell they call it. And they would just happen to be there, and then he would see them and then go over there. And instead of taking off, like one of them would like be there for him to kind of throw around and like throw his bike at him and stuff. And he comes back, he throws paint all over his car. And it's like, those things just didn't ring true to me. Like, I'm like fucking 57 years old. I've never seen anybody lose their mind like that in a parking lot and start throwing paint on their car. Or
you've obviously never been to the Market Basket on Store Street in Concord, New York.
That could
or
be,
go to Manchester where I go.
But it just, the whole thing just felt like it was, there's the one where I felt like, okay, they want to make these points. And so they're going to make the situation so that these things can be addressed. And, you know, they did it in a clever way where it's the birthday. So there's like these reasons for different things to happen. But in the end, it just kind of felt like the timing of things and the events were a little more manipulated than the rest of it, which just seemed to be completely natural and kind of flowing through. And it was the only time that I felt like I was like, oh, you know, people are acting. You know, I thought the whole rest of it was so naturalistic. And most of that episode is naturalistic too. But there are moments at which I was like, oh yeah, these guys are actors. Mm-hmm. So that was like, I mean, it's not really disappointing. Like if it was in any other show, I'd be like, oh yeah, that was an awesome episode. But the fact that it's in this show where the first 3 episodes in my mind were so different and just hit so much differently than anything else like this that we've watched. Like that one seemed like sort of a compromise between the first 3 episodes and then like a normal sort of thoughtful prestige TV show that we would have watched.
But Toby, in this series though, I should mention your favorite person, Andrew Tate, got a shout out.
Andrew Tate, I love that guy. No, Andrew Tate is the fucking worst
There's
person
a clip
on
that will never be pulled out of context.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's make that my ringtone.
Yeah, I mean he's a malign presence for boys and young men. He was in jail in Romania for sex trafficking, I think.
Yes.
And fortunately, our president decided to bring him to the United States, where he's now kind of preening around at like MMA events and stuff. And it's freaking ludicrous.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the one person who's name checked in this entire thing, I think, unless you want to like, aha, I guess is another like.
They're on the baseline, and aha was so important.
Hi, this is Steve Buscemi, you know, the actor. Well, now I'm an actor and podcast host. From Piece of Work Entertainment and Campside Media in association with Olive Productions comes Big Time, an Apple original podcast. Each episode follows the story of one misfit with big dreams who isn't afraid to bend a few rules or take a shortcut to get there.
Well, who steals bees?
I was duped.
I'll shoot you in the leg.
This is Big Time. Follow and listen on Apple Podcasts.
Charlie Heller is the CIA's most brilliant computer analyst, whose life is turned upside down when his wife is murdered in a terrorist attack. Wrought with grief, Charlie decides her killers must pay. Without any field experience, Charlie must trek the globe and use his biggest weapon, his intelligence, to enact his revenge. Because the most unexpected threat is an amateur. Starring Academy Award winner Rami Malek and Academy Award nominee Lawrence Fishburne, The Amateur, rated PG-13. Only in theaters and IMAX April 11th.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our audience know, should they check out Adolescence? It's a 4-part series on Netflix. Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for Adolescence?
Yeah, this is a big thumbs up. I think this is one of the best things we've watched in a very long time. You know, it gave, for me, a really accurate window into what happens when a juvenile is accused of a really heinous crime, not only to that person in the system, but to the people around them, to their friends, to their family, to the police that are involved. And obviously it was in England, so, you know, I like anything with like a British flair to it. But I think the acting in this was just amazing. The scene setting was amazing. The filming technique that they used was really unique and created a lot of suspense. This was something that just pulled me right in. And I was like, this is going to be a really heavy watch. It was extremely heavy, but it was just so well done. And I've been telling people to watch it because it was really unlike anything that we've watched. I don't want to say ever, but it was extremely,
it's up there. Yeah.
It's up there, extremely unique. So yeah, big thumbs up from me.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Adolescence on Netflix?
You know, it's hard to say something's a game changer because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. I would hope that this is kind of a game changer for sort of prestige TV. And I hope that there are people who try to emulate not necessarily this idea of having 1 hour long shot for each episode or whatever. But I think the way in which a lot of the common tropes and expectations and things that have sort of come to sort of define television, you know, even prestige television, when they're taken away and you see something that doesn't subscribe to those, it feels very, very different. At least it did to me. I mean, I saw this as number one on Netflix. It certainly is getting a hell of a lot of talk in the press. And I hope what people who are making things in the future take away the lessons that make this such a compelling watch. I think a lot of the artifice that is in TV and movies is kind of removed, and what you see feels very real. The acting is unbelievable by everybody. Like, I literally can't think of one person in the entire show, like even in bit parts, who wasn't entirely convincing and natural. And I mean, it just, everything felt pitch perfect as far as that went. So I'm a huge thumbs up. Like, I can't imagine this won't be the number one. Like, something's going to have to be freaking unbelievable to not have this be the number one TV show on my top 10 list at the end of the year. The only thing I will say is that it's very, very sad. And I was actually talking to my parents about it and saying how incredible I thought it was, but that I didn't really recommend that they watch it because I just felt that it was this kind of sadness aspect, which would probably be more than they would want to kind of take in. So I would just have that in mind. But beyond that, I can't recommend this enough. I just found this to be totally compelling. And if the kid who plays Jaime doesn't get like all the awards at the end of the year, I will be like pretty disappointed, because I honestly, his acting in this is just like, if you told me like for some of the stuff that there was just a documentary and you're just watching stuff happen, I would have bought it. I mean, the kid is, the job he does is unbelievable. So anyway, the thumbs uppiest of thumbs up.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm a big thumbs up. This really plays with the form and changes it. This year's Baby Reindeer, we haven't seen anything like this. It not only is technically an achievement. The acting is great. The story is really powerful. It's something that really leaves you asking big questions about life. And it's called Adolescence because even though there's a crime, this is really the focus. The mystery here is the world of being a teenager today. And it's a lot of adults. They don't realize that they don't know what they don't know. And it ends up being, something that's really compelling. As far as a crime goes, I mean, I was I guess I was taken with it in a completely different way than everybody else saw, which is fine. I think it just means that people will see a lot of different things in this, a lot to interpret. And this is a conversation starter.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you talk about this at work around the water cooler, you're going to be there for a little while. This will be an office productivity killer. So really, you should watch this. I think that you'll find it is a powerful, genre-breaking crime drama and something that's really thought-provoking. And I can't imagine this not being the number one thing that we will watch in 2025. If it's not, it means it's a spectacular year.
Yeah, I agree too. Huge thumbs up for me. This is my favorite thing that I've watched in a really long time. And, it's about being a woman without about being a woman. It's about politics without being about politics. It's about criminal justice without being about criminal justice. It's about so many things and does not hit you on the head with any of those things because it's gripping. It's deeply entertaining. We watched all 4 episodes in a row. And that was actually an easy thing to do. Like I couldn't wait to watch the next one. And the technical achievement that this is like I can't like over talk about that. Like I can't oversell it. It is so technically incredibly well done. And when you sort of watch Netflix, thank goodness, has put out all these little videos about how it was made and stuff, which I think is brilliant because it is tempting, like Kevin said in the main review, to think that you're being tricked. And we're not. Of course, we're watching something that's fiction, but we're not being tricked. We're seeing it as they made it and as it was intended to be seen. And it's so groundbreaking. Unlike Toby, I don't want other people to emulate this. Like I remember watching McMillions and thinking it was so brilliant. And now every documentary that comes out, every other one has that sort of style. And I don't want that for this. Like I love that this has this thing. I know it's going to be emulated. I know it, but I love this. I just will say I deeply, deeply loved it. It's singular. I love it in a different way than I love other things. And like Kevin and Toby both said, if something outranks this on the top 10 list for TV this year, it's going to be the best thing we've ever seen, probably. So yeah, huge thumbs up for me for Adolescence. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, except for talking about adolescence, a little something I like to call the crime of the week. Police in Tennessee are looking for 4 people who robbed a gas station. Their weapon of choice? 2 pythons. Authorities say the men entered the Citco in Denmark and placed the snakes on the counter. The cashier freaked out like Indiana Jones in a buried temple. The cops think too many people started entering the store, so instead of demanding money, they just took all the CBD oil from the counter. It's not the first snake stick-up in the area. Last year, a guy tried to hold up a Memphis store with a python, but the serpent wrapped around the robber's neck instead.
I get shot with your own gun, yeah.
So, panel, this snake gang needs a cool name. What should they be called, Laura Bricker?
I don't want to call them anything because snakes are my biggest phobia in the world. Like
really?
I cannot even hear you. I can't even look at a picture of a snake. So thinking about this crime happening, I'm going to have nightmares. So I am not even responding. I'm banishing it from my mind.
Laura, you'd rather have a gun pointed in your face than a python?
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I stepped on a snake with bare feet when I was 4 years old and I have never recovered from that. So nope.
Toby, what moniker would you give this cool gang?
So first of all, a python, like, it's not like giving somebody a rattlesnake and it bites them.
No.
Like a python's got to like...
It's not a cobra.
Crawl around you and start squeezing you and stuff. So you know, you're going to be there for 15, 20 minutes before anything exciting happens. I just read this right before we started, and I was trying to come up with like clever, like play on words with like Bloods
like
or Crips or the Jets and the Sharks or anything like that. And it just seems like the kind of thing with people who have a whole lot of time on their hands might have that kind of gang. Yeah, there you go.
What about you, Kevin?
Cobra Kai.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Sweep the leg.
Very good. All right, that's going to do it for us. Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you online and commiserate with you about your fear of snakes, how can they find you there?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Blue Sky and Instagram.
What about you, Toby? Where can people find you?
At Toby Ball NH on Blue Sky.
Kevin Flynn.
I'm everywhere, Kevin P. Flynn.
If you want to follow me everywhere, you can find me at Reb Lavoie. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm still on Twitter for Karen Reed stuff. I'm on Instagram, etc. But mostly, as Kevin said during the business section, you should join our Facebook group. Find us on Facebook. There's a link there to join the group. It's freaking awesome. Get episodes early and ad-free and everything else we make at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons. Our editor is the terrific Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin. This show is recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also touch up our cars with house paint, like regularly.
I have the swatches for them.
On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later. And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy. Oh, I already introduced you, right, Toby?
We can do it again if you want.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. All right. Sorry.
High Five Casino is the top choice for social casino gaming that's free to play. With chances to win and redeem for real cash prizes, free spin rewards, and tons of exclusive games, you can experience more high five moments than ever before. You're going to want to high five everyone. The neighbors, the mailman, all your coworkers, of course your friends. Well, you get the point. Your high five moment awaits at highfivecasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, this is Steve Buscemi. You know, the actor. Well, now I'm an actor and podcast host. From Piece of Work Entertainment and Campside Media in association with Olive Productions comes Big Time, an Apple original podcast. Each episode follows the story of one misfit with big dreams who isn't afraid to bend a few rules or take a shortcut to get there.
Well, who steals bees?
I was duped.
I'll shoot you in the leg.
This is Big Time. Follow and listen on Apple Podcasts.
The new KFC Dunk-It Bucket with juicy original recipe tenders, new mashed potato poppers, crispy fries, plus 3 sauces that fit right on top of the lid, so you can dunk anywhere. You can dunk at the game, dunk while security points to the no outside food sign, and dunk as 20,000 people watch you and your Dunk-It Bucket get removed from the stadium. Dunk almost anywhere with the new $7 KFC Dunk-It Bucket, or get the double Dunk-It Bucket for $25. Prices and participation vary while supplies last. Taxes, tips, and fees extra.